want to thank everybody for your patience. Thanks for being here. As you all know, on today's date, we actually held a disciplinary review hearing involving the officer-involved shooting involving Officer Jeffrey Freeman, and Mr. David Joseph. This hearing occurred after a long and extensive investigation that in fact was so well done that the Citizens Review Panel wrote me a memorandum commending the Austin Police Department Internal Affairs Division for the thoroughness of the investigation and for the great work of our investigative team. As you all know, that the Austin Police Department takes the use of force, but especially the use of deadly force, very seriously. Anytime our officers make those decisions to utilize deadly force, we must conduct an investigation to determine the objective reasonableness of that use of force. And more importantly, we have to hold our officers to the highest standards, which is something that the vast majority of our men and women absolutely take pride in, knowing that they work for an organization that holds them to high standards. This incident occurred on February 8th, 2016, when Officer Freeman responded to a neighborhood here in North Austin. And today, at about 2 p.m., we held our hearing in this matter. After an extensive investigation and our hearing, the chain of command, which included the Officer Freeman's immediate sergeant, his lieutenant, his acting commander, his bureau chief, Chief McElwain, who's here, our chief of staff, Brian Manley, who's standing by me, and myself. After reviewing all the facts and circumstances in this case, the department has sustained unanimously, with the recommendation of the chain of command, the following violations of departmental policy. Austin Police Department Policy 200.1, response to resistance. Austin Police Department Policy 200.2, response to resistance. Austin Police Department Policy 200.2.1, response to resistance, objective reasonableness. Austin Police Department Policy 321.4, substance-induced excited delirium. And Austin Police Department Policy 900.4.3, H as in Henry, general conduct and responsibilities, specifically neglect of duty. I think it's important for folks to understand that based on the totality of the circumstances, the chain unanimously did not feel that the officer's use of deadly force under the circumstances meets the objectively reasonable standard. And consequently, after sustaining all of these policy violations unanimously, the chain and myself concurring have indefinitely suspended Officer Freeman. Now, I think it's important for this community to know, and for my officers to know, that this does not mean that we need to demonize a police officer that day took action that he deemed appropriate based on his perception and circumstances. However, our review has to be based on an objective reasonable standard, and we unanimously do not believe that his use of deadly force was justified in this case. Some people might want to demonize our officer. Officers are human beings. They make good decisions, they make poor decisions. In this case, as it relates to the officer's actions in this case, we don't believe they're consistent with the standards, the training, and the procedures of the Austin Police Department. Please know that this case is ongoing in terms of the criminal piece. I'm certain, based on what I've heard from the officers' defense reps, that they are going to appeal this decision, which is their absolute right to do. We are confident that we will absolutely be able to withstand an appeal in this matter. As a matter of fact, when you look at instances where we have fired in my tenure here officers for the use of deadly force, which has happened regardless of what the critics would say, that we never hold officers accountable. The facts in this case, in this department, truly do not bear that to be true. We hold our officers accountable, especially as it relates to deadly force. we have yet to lose, to my knowledge, a deadly force appeal as it relates to any officer that has been fired from the office in the police department for use of force, especially deadly force. And we're confident that we will be able to uphold this in a civil appeal process with the civil service and through arbitration. With that said, again, I urge people to not demonize a person. Officer Freeman is a person that, but for this horrible set of circumstances, he served honorably. But based on this set of circumstances, we don't believe he needs to remain on the department. Our hearts go out to the Joseph family, as we said before. I've communicated with the Joseph family. I've talked to the Joseph family since this incident, and our hearts go out to David Joseph's family. Lastly, what happens from here is that this matter now will be in the hands of the Travis County District Attorney. I have spoken with the District Attorney, Rosemary Lemberg, and because a lot of the information that we gleaned in our internal affairs investigation is compelled, it's a compelled statement from the officer, and we believe that maintaining the sanctity of the criminal investigation is a top priority. We will be making a motion to withhold from public release the actual internal affairs file because it has compelled statements in there that could, in fact, if released, taint the criminal investigation. We join the district attorney in requesting that that information be withheld until the criminal process is completed, especially the grand jury process. Consistent with the DA's process and history, once she's done with her grand jury process, she makes everything available. As you all recall, there is video in this case. And again, once that criminal piece is completed, the internal affairs package, because the officer's been indefinitely suspended, will be made publicly available. But as I said before, and I'll say again, our responsibility is to the involved families, the Joseph family and the Officer Freeman family, and we must act in a manner that maintains the integrity of that criminal piece, and so we will be withholding the internal affairs investigation. That's all I have. Understand again that a lot of my knowledge is based on compelled statements, so I won't be answering too many questions, but I'll try to answer as many as possible.
Chief, the CLEAT, the Officer Association, they were critical, saying that by putting the time frame on this one that you did and making some statements that you did, that you weren't giving the due diligence. Did you do anything different in this case than you have in previous officer-involved shootings?
No, I think that in this case, I was at the scene like I am at most of my cases. Folks have to understand that I get criticized from the community because, let's face it, the very, very, very vast majority of our officer-involved shootings are justified and are objectively reasonable. I get beat up on the community because I frame expectations early on in investigation. When you look at this case and once all the information is eventually released, it's not that complex, it's not that complicated. And so I can tell you that I didn't do anything differently than we normally would do. We conducted a thorough investigation, a timely investigation, but I think we owed it to Officer Freeman and his family, the Joseph family, our police department, and the members of this police department in this community to, like we always do, try to get these things done in a timely, thorough, and complete manner. And if you talk to the police monitor and the citizens review panel, they actually were highly complimentary of our investigative team in terms of the thoroughness and the completeness of this investigation. They're very happy with the quality of the investigation, and I think that once this community sees it, they will agree with them as well.
Can you clarify indefinite suspension and firing? Is it the same?
Well, indefinite suspension is a civil service term for firing. He has been definitely suspended, and again, it was a unanimous recommendation of the chain, and ultimately it's my decision to box ups with me. I agree that it's the appropriate discipline in this case. And so because he has the right to appeal, and I'm certain he will appeal, they have 10 days to file an appeal, it does not become technically a firing until the arbitrator upholds the indefinite suspension. So right now, he's indefinitely suspended without pay, pending a hearing and pending a final ruling from the arbitrator. What else? Okay, well, thank you very much. And I would just tell the community again, thank you for your patience in this matter. I will just say one thing, that for Cleet or anybody else to say that I'm politically motivated, I've been here for almost 9 years now, and if anybody knows this chief, it's them. We make our decisions based on the facts, based on the evidence, based on policy, based on the law, not based on which way the wind's blowing, whether it's the community who wants something one way, or it's labor that wants something one way. Sometimes labor is ecstatic, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes the union is ecstatic, the community is ecstatic, and sometimes they're not. My job is not to take a poll. My job is to make a call. That call has been made. It was made unanimously, and I stand by it. Thank you very much.